We learned last night that Special Counsel Robert Mueller's special report is not coming out next week, and the sentencing memo submitted to the judge last night in Paul Manafort's case, which many thought would reveal intriguing details, remains under seal. But whenever Mueller's report is delivered, my question is, what will we, the public, actually see? Mueller's required to, quote, provide the Attorney General with a confidential report explaining the prosecution or declination decisions reached by the special counsel. And then it'll be up to the newly appointed Attorney General William Barr what happens to that report. Will there be any evidence of collusion, or will the president be vindicated? In either case, what is the possible political fallout? Joining me now to discuss is Jonathan Turley, the constitutional law scholar and professor of law at George Washington University. Professor, permit me a long setup, because I know what I want to ask you, and it's this. If a collusion conspiracy case is to be made, you'd think that Roger Stone would factor in it, but he wasn't indicted for that. He was indicted for these so-called process crimes. You can say, okay, well, the feds can charge successively, but now comes word that Mueller is finishing up. So doesn't the absence of additional indictments against Stone suggest, as the president would say, no collusion?
Well, it does. I mean, you have to, call them as you see them. There is no evidence thus far of collusion between the Trump campaign or President Trump and the Russians in hacking these computer systems. And moreover, it's really quite unlikely, right? If you were a KGB spy master, would you really collude with Donald Trump and put yourself one tweet away from destruction on perhaps the most secret operation in its recent history? The answer is no. They wouldn't do that. Would you hold a hyper sensitive meeting at Trump Tower with half the media downstairs and not actually produce the evidence promised and instead talk about adoptions? No. The most obvious explanation is probably the right one, that there was not collusion in the hacking of the system. Now, what appears to be the case is that Stone wanted to get access to this information. That's not illegal. Journalists, political operatives, even academics all try to get their hands on material like this, whether it's whistleblowing or whether it came from one source or another. There's nothing illegal in that. And so I think that so far we're one collusion short of making that case.
Okay, so, and I can only imagine the blowback that the two of us will get for delving into the details. It's okay. I just want to follow the facts. But how about this? So you've got Manafort and Kalimnik at a cigar bar in New York City. But again, I'm looking at it from 30,000 feet, and I say, if Mueller were going to indict Manafort for collusion, conspiracy more literally, that would have happened by now, and it hasn't.
Yeah, what's fascinating, Michael, is I wrote a column recently that Mueller has done a better job finding Ukrainian collusion than Russian collusion. I mean, what's astonishing
right.
in all these filings is how many Ukrainians are involved. I mean, Manafort was in the pocket of the Ukrainians. Now, it's true, many of them were pro-Russians, but their interests were not identical to that of Russia. There was a lot of different Ukrainians and contracts going to Ukraine that were floating around here. But there really still is not that critical piece of evidence that shows some collusion before the hacking. What is clear is that many people wanted to see these emails, but so did a lot of journalists.
So let's talk about the president for a moment. Bill Barr, in his confirmation hearing, I thought had a very interesting exchange. Roll that tape.
And the other thing is, if you're not going to indict someone, then you don't stand up there and unload negative information about the person. That's not the way the Department of Justice does business. It sort of shows you what happens when you start disregarding the normal procedures and established practice, is that you sort of dig yourself a deeper and deeper hole.
Professor Turley, he's talking about Jim Comey, not by name, but I hear him saying, I'm not pulling a Comey. I'm not going to hammer Hillary without indicting her. So apply that now to the current president.
Yeah, for full disclosure, I testified after Bill Barr at that hearing in favor of his confirmation. He also was my former client, and I represented a bunch of former attorneys general. But Bill Barr means it. You know, the senators asked me at that same hearing, why won't he commit to releasing the whole report? And I said, because that would be unethical. You're asking as a condition for confirmation for him to promise to do something he can't promise. Under federal law, he has to review the report. He has to remove certain types of evidence. So if he had said yes to that, then I would have opposed his confirmation, and he didn't because he's an ethical lawyer. Bill Barr is I guess I've known him for many years. You can take it to the bank what he said. He's going to try to disclose as much as possible. Does that mean he's going to do a Comey? No. You know, he is a really straight shooting prosecutor. He's friends with Mueller. You know, and they are cut from the same bolt in that sense. So I think that he's going to try to get as much out as possible. But under the law, it says that he supplies a summary as to what was stated. Now, Michael, as you know, that's not going to satisfy anyone, no matter how fulsome that summary may be. The Democrats in the House may then try to subpoena the whole report and or bring in Mueller.
Give me the 20-second answer. What of the prospect that there are sealed indictments out there that are going to blow the doors off all of this?
Oh, there is a possibility of that. I am not discounting that Mueller could have sealed indictments or actually bring down an indictment next week. There's a certain strategic value in holding off some indictments to the very end. What it's clear is that he's winding down on this report, and we're going to have some answers one way or the other sooner than later.
We should be giving out your email address today, not mine, Professor Turley. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it very much.
Thanks, Michael.
Let's see what you're saying via my social media, Twitter and Facebook pages.
We live in a really nightmare. We live in a really nightmare.